even when you're feeling alone, that there are people that care about you.
Yes, absolutely.
We may have a hard time expressing that or meeting that, but that the church is and can be space, a safe group of community.
Today, we're meeting Adrian, a young man that, because of his passion to help other people, he decided to become a psychologist. And it's so amazing that even his spiritual growth, how he came to know Christ, impacted who he is today and what he does, helping young people to get to know them and to help with loneliness. This is a wonderful conversation, and you will love to meet Adrian. Adrian, I'm really excited that you're here today. This is the first time that we meet, but I heard of you and I was really excited about this topic and this conversation. But before we start with our topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Certainly. Thank you for the invitation. So, like I said, my name is Adrian Panetto, and I'm a psychologist in North Carolina. A little bit about me. I was born in Puerto Rico, and I was born and raised there with my family. Large family that I grew up with, 7 siblings.
Wow. That's a large family.
Yes, certainly. Grew up non-Christian, and really came to the faith later on in my teen years, but also moved around quite a bit geographically. So started in Puerto Rico, moved to Florida, and then went to school in Indiana, and now I'm here in North Carolina. So moved around quite a bit, and throughout that movement, I've also developed my faith as well, and it's been a journey.
So your parents were not Christians before. They became Christians when you were a teenager?
No. So my parents is what I would say culturally Christian. So
Okay.
they would attend, services or holidays. But in terms of a consistent practice in the home or anything like that, that was not present. So it wasn't until my teenage years that I really had these big questions that I wanted to have answered.
And you didn't? It wasn't your parents?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
It was just me.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I had always sort of wondered, like, what's my purpose? What am I here for? What are the big questions in life, and who can answer them? And so I really was searching for some of these really spiritual questions to be answered. And so I began to search and attend different churches and talk to a lot of different people. And from there is really when I had the opportunity to, make my faith my own and get baptized. And
so you had somebody that you talked to,
mm-hmm.
and the answers they gave made sense to what you were looking for, like who you are, the purpose, and all of that.
Absolutely. Yes.
And as a teenager, I'm just insisting and asking because this is usually difficult. Usually teenagers, they're not there yet, or they go with the flow like with other people,
mm-hmm.
but you were the one who...
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate and admire that.
Thank you.
So so you had that experience. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a psychologist.
Yes.
Why psychology?
I started wanting to understand the brain and understand what makes us who we are. So in terms of our biology and our neural senses, and what's so interesting is our brains are weigh around like 3 pounds on average, but they consume about 20% of the energy that we use on a daily basis. So they're not that big, but they consume a lot of energy, and without it, we're not who we are. And so I was curious to understand the brain. I was curious to understand what makes people who they are, what makes them tick, if you will, whether it's their personality, whether it's the way they relate to others, whether their preferences, their intelligence. So I was curious about just understanding more about the human experience.
I can see that you're a curious young man.
Yes.
Now, as you were mentioning about your scientific side of why you went into psychology, the question that came to my mind is, how were you able to put the two together, the faith and the science behind your curiosity, your passion about psychology?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what my academic and faith journey have reminded me is that God created us to be in connection, created us to be in community. And because of my academic, pursuits, I've been able to see the spiritual truths that are found in the fields of psychology and certain fields of science, to understand how we were created and how we get to see that every day and play out in our lives. And so for me, it's been seeing how, what we know in the Bible and we know spiritually is true, just is elucidated in science. It's already been there, and we're just kind of seeing it more clearly.
And you were able to reconcile the two.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because sometimes it's difficult, especially when you study a lot of the science, it's difficult, but it takes a lot of faith to understand that the two are together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is awesome. So talking to you in preparation for this, you said that one of the topics that you wanted to talk about it was loneliness as being an epidemic, is that how you say?
Epidemic.
So why is that your passion, and what does that look like right now?
Yeah, so it's my passion because we know that 18 to 22-year-olds, for example, report feeling the most lonely, out of other age groups. And at a time when we can communicate the most, right? We're connected digitally through our phones, through social media. And even though we are connected, we're feeling disconnected and we're feeling lonely. And so for me, it's a passion because, understanding why that's happening, as well as what we can do about it as a psychologist or as a member, as a Christian, a member of a church. I believe it's important to, as a church, to be relevant to what's happening societally in our country, as well as with young people. And so for me, it's a passion to meet the needs of young people. And that's right now, there's a huge influx or increase in loneliness. I feel lonely. I'm not connected. I don't feel like I belong. Nobody cares about me. Who can I be vulnerable with, right? Who can hold me accountable? It's a variety of different parts that make people feel lonely. But really it comes down to having that connection and how important that is.
You touched on social media.
Yeah.
I think there is, and this is my unprofessional observation, okay? Yeah. Two things that I have noticed. Yeah. One, positive thing. Yeah. People are more aware of their mental health issues. So could it be the awareness, it's making us overthink a little more? Oh. The other side, do you think the over-connectedness with social media is increasing loneliness?
Yes to both. I would say one, because, social media creates this false narrative, this theater self, this, you just show the good parts of your life. You don't really show the hard parts or the parts that are difficult to express to others. So social media can create a false reality or a false sense that you project onto others. And second to that, it's even though you are connected, doesn't mean that the relationship or the connection is deep or meaningful. It could just be superficial. So many young people would say, I have many acquaintances or I have many friends, but they don't really know me. I
have 1,000 likes.
Exactly.
I have 1,000 likes, but when I really need someone, I have nobody.
Who do I call? Absolutely. And, in those moments in our lives, that's what matters, right? When things are hard or challenging, or even when you're celebrating a big moment, who do you want to call? Who do you want to connect with? And those are the people that are meaningful in your life. And unfortunately, the loneliness epidemic shows us that many people are feeling that they have that less and less available.
Do you think it's kind of like the sugar high? Like you eat something with sugar and you're so happy. And then all of a sudden you crush.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the feeling that they have with social media because they post something and they get millions of views and millions of likes and they get this social high and then all of a sudden they realize none of these are real.
Yeah.
And they crash.
Absolutely. It's rewarding. It certainly is in our brain just to that instant gratification, to post something, to receive all that approval or validation. And then, when you realize that and you reflect on it, you're like, well, then what do I still feel like there's something missing? Or do I still feel like nobody is here with me or nobody likes me or, I don't have that deep connection. So yes, absolutely. And young people are more susceptible to that because they care a lot about what their peers think, care more about what their friends are saying about them and other people. So I think as a church and as Christians, we have a unique opportunity to make that known that that's happening and to say, that loneliness doesn't need to be so prevalent.
And I think it is kind of like up to Gen X's and boomers. You didn't get a trophy of participation, right? It was the younger generation, the millennials, the Gen Z, that they started getting participation trophies. And I believe, and again, my unprofessional theory here,
Got it.
that you get a trophy, but then you're like, I know I didn't deserve this. And it's the same feeling that I imagine it happens online. Like people are saying, oh, you're so beautiful. I like this so much. And then you go, I don't have real friends. And that's where it gets into the depression, so it's a distorted reality that probably is causing the loneliness and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking as a millennial myself, I grew up with the internet. I grew up with social media in its infancy. And we've seen just how it's impacting self-esteem, how it's impacting young girls who are growing up. And, time and time again, it's changing us. It's forming us. And it's in some ways taking us away from what's true, which is, you're loved, you're seen, you have those people around you that care about you. But we're trying to look for that in, social media or other places that isn't necessarily where it's grounded or rooted in.
Do you think churches are aware of the loneliness, I can say this
epidemic.
right, the epidemic of loneliness?
Yeah.
Do you think churches are aware? Absolutely.
I think not just churches, but the government, right? A report came out last year by the Surgeon General saying that it's an epidemic and it's causes a lot of health concerns, even things as like depression, anxiety, premature death. And so churches are aware, government agencies are aware. And so, churches really have a unique opportunity to respond to it, right? Because what are churches? Really a group of people, right? A body. And so we can, and the church can meet the need. That is not just about, the loneliness. This is about, meaning and purpose and deep connection. And so it's not just about the number of people that you have in your life, but that feeling, that sense of belonging, that, I am supported, that I have people in my life who are going to be there and will continue to be there throughout the rest of my life. And I think churches as a body, as a group of people, are uniquely situated to meet that need.
In your researches and your experience observations, have you noticed a difference between young people that are feeling lonely in the church compared to the ones outside of the church?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think blanket across, people are feeling more lonely. The difference, with those in and out of the church is difficult to parse out. But, what the research has shown is that it's not, again, how many friends you have or how many people you know, but it's that perceived, that sense of, I have a support system. I have people that care about me. And so it's about really the quality. It's about the quality. And so, those in the church, can have those higher quality relationships because they're at the same place every week, or maybe they're at a different extracurricular activity. So there's more opportunities to develop that higher quality. Doesn't always necessarily happen, but I think that's where the difference can be.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is this. If they are in the church and have connections, that would make a difference.
Absolutely.
But if they are in the church but don't have connection, they would be in the same situation as those that are outside.
Absolutely. And even, being in the church and not feeling connected can be really challenging and isolating.
It might even be worse because in the church, we expect to have the connection. We expect people to care for us. The people outside, a lot of times we know they don't, but sometimes they do find community outside as well.
Absolutely.
Those are very interesting and important points for church people to understand.
Absolutely.
Have you ever seen any type of mentorship program or a small group, something that church did that worked?
Yes. Whether it's interest groups or life groups or small groups, there's different names for this, but it's intentional time dedicated to building those connections and not just building them, strengthening them, really getting that deeper sense of, I have a support system here in this church. And so I've participated in life groups that have been great. I've led life groups myself. whether it's around, studying the Bible or maybe a particular interest or hobby, but also have been mentored by the pastor or the elders or the deacons in the church who have helped me and taken me under their wing to, help my growth as a Christian, help my journey
How
as
do
a
you
disciple.
think mentorship is important in these situations?
Crucial. It absolutely is crucial. I think it's one of the points that young people say is the church is not relevant. Why is it not relevant? Is it because people aren't mentoring me? Because I don't have those individuals that are older or maybe more experienced or seasoned who can guide me. And so I think that's really a point of where we can meet, that criticism, if you will, or that, that weakness is how can we connect with young adults, young people around making this relevant, around what their concerns are, what their life is, what their education is about, what life stage are they in, and how can we target that specifically?
Yes, yes. How can we encourage young people to participate in this program?
That's great. I really think getting away from the church walls. I really think that meeting young people where they are, moving away from the structure and going to homes, going to parks, going to just different venues in which young people are and are wanting to engage in. And sometimes that will be social media, but sometimes it's going to be in that in-person, one-on-one opportunity. And so it's not about just creating the program or, putting something together and expecting people to come. It's really just going out and meeting them where they are, whether it's in homes or other venues that are where young people want to be.
What suggestions do you have for churches that are realizing, okay, this is a problem and they want to start supporting people? How do you suggest that they could start something?
Yeah, I would say really ask the young people what they need, what's going on, really listen and empathize with what is it like to be a young person right now in this country, as well as, in general, about what you're going through, specific unique needs. Many of those are academic, or many of those are around future, career, and things like that. So that's where mentorship can come into play. That's where, listening and, meeting that need can come into play.
And it's interesting that you said, okay, they might be thinking of like what they want to do when they grow up or a profession. Sometimes just being a part of a group, even if it's not specifically talking about loneliness, but just being a part of the group, the loneliness already starts lifting up, right?
It can, absolutely.
Yeah. How about an advice to the young person who is going through this? Because I love that you said, listen.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge that we have is that we don't listen. And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to do this is to listen to young people. So start by listening. What advice do you give to the young person who is listening to us right now and they're like, I feel lonely. That is me. What do you tell this person?
Yeah. I would say that you're not alone. That's the first thing I would say. That you may feel alone and that's okay. And please know that even when you're feeling alone, that there are people that care about you.
Yes, absolutely.
We may have a hard time expressing that or meeting that, but that the church is and can be a space, a safe group of community to, meet you where you're at, and that you don't have to pretend or, put a social media front and say, my life's all perfect. You could say, I'm feeling lonely. It's vulnerable. It's hard to express that, certainly. But that by doing so, it makes it easier for other people to also share and say, I also feel the same way too, or I have felt what you felt.
And I think I'm going to add one thing.
Yeah.
If the first person doesn't give you that attention, don't give up. They're humans.
Yes.
And sometimes they're lost. They have no idea what they're
Absolutely.
doing. Don't give up, because God doesn't give up on them. And God will put the right person.
Yeah.
I'm saying this because I had to try, I do therapy, and I had to try a few therapists before I found the one that
Connected with me.
Yeah. So mentors in the church is the same way.
Yeah.
Sometimes the first one, the person ignore me, see, nobody really likes me. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
People are busy. They don't know what to do. You are loved by God. And just don't give up.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, where you listed or where you shared is so important, that the leaders have to share that, lead by example,
Yes.
model by example, model that vulnerability, and expressing, you know, this is what I'm going through, this is what's hard, this is what's happening in my life right now. And if the leaders do that, then it sends a signal, right, to the congregation or to the members that, you know, we don't have to have everything together, or not everything has to be perfect, that we're here to support each other in the highs and lows of life. So I think as leaders, pastors, deacons, elders, you know, whoever, you know, leading by that example. And I know it can be hard to do that, right? But really understand what you're doing. You're giving a gift to others that they can also share as well.
Exactly. Adrian, this was wonderful. I really enjoy speaking with you, getting to know you a little more. I hope we stay connected so we can help other young adults like yourself to whatever it is the issue, if it's loneliness, depression, anxiety. I absolutely love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And just continue doing that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.